So not only did week 5 of the NFL have a ton of down-to-the-wire games that ended in nail-biting fashion, but the New York Jets just surprisingly fired their head coach Robert Saleh this morning. Well, in today's video, I'll get into some of the most surprising moments and storylines from all these games, and talk about the crazy coaching changes the Jets just made right after. Alright, this week was filled with games that came down to the wire, game-winning touchdowns, field goals, defensive stops, you name it. This week did not disappoint. In total, 9 of the 14 matchups were one-score games, which is insane. So I want to break down the ending to every game that went down to the final possession, aside from the Patriots and Dolphins game, because who cares? And I'm going to start first, for obvious reasons, with the Jets and Vikings, who kicked off the Sunday slate over in London. Minnesota was up 17-0, thanks in part to Aaron Rodgers throwing just the 6th pick six of his career to Andrew Van Ginkel, who read him like a book, taking it 63 yards to the crib. It truly was a historic day for Rodgers. He became the 9th quarterback in NFL history to reach 60,000 passing yards, and he also threw 2 first-quarter interceptions for the first time in his career, following up that pick six with an overthrow that sailed directly to Cam Bynum. A fullback dive to green eggs and ham put the Vikings up 17, but the Jets came roaring back, starting with this laser to Allen Lazard right before halftime. Sam Darnold had the worst game of the season for him by far. I think just being that close to those Jets jerseys zapped his powers, because he finished 14 of 31 for 179 yards, didn't throw a touchdown for the first time all year, and had this brutal pick in the fourth quarter that the Jets turned into a Garrett Wilson touchdown to cut the lead to 3. To his credit, Darnold bounced back and made a couple big throws to move the Vikings into field goal range, where Will Reichard drilled his 3rd field goal of the day to put Minnesota up 6. So, with 3 minutes left, A-Rod and the Jets started marching down the field, getting all the way inside the Vikings' 30-yard line with under a minute left, looking like they were going to successfully drain the clock and score the go-ahead touchdown with little to no time remaining. But that's when Aaron Rodgers once again made history and threw this pick to Stephon Gilmore, and that sealed the game. That was just the 6th time in Aaron Rodgers' career that he's thrown 3 picks in a game, and that last one couldn't have come at a worse time. So the Jets dropped to 2-3. Meanwhile, the Vikings stay hot and move to 5-0. And check out this insane stat. The Vikings have only trailed in 3 minutes and 26 seconds of game time this entire season, all of which came in week 1, by the way. And here are the other 5 teams that have had the least amount of time trailing through the first 5 weeks of the year and how their seasons ended. The 2009 Saints won the Super Bowl. The 1984 Dolphins lost the Super Bowl. Last year's 49ers lost the Super Bowl. The 99 Rams won the Super Bowl, as did the 98 Broncos. And then there's the 2024 Minnesota Vikings. I'm not saying they're making the Super Bowl, but I'm also not saying it either. Now, before I get into the rest of these insane down-to-the-wire games that happened over the weekend, I've got to talk about some of the biggest and most surprising news that just happened this morning. And that is, just a couple days after this game, the Jets were 2-3. Head coach Robert Saleh got fired. Adam Schefter was the first to break the news, and Jordan Schultz shared that Saleh came into the building today expecting business as usual. The decision of him getting fired was a surprise, and it reportedly came directly from ownership. Overall, this was a stunning move to many in the building. Jay Glazer spoke with Saleh after this happened, and apparently co-owner Woody Johnson just walked into Saleh's office and fired him right then and there, and Saleh was completely blindsided by it all. I think the most surprising thing here to me is, what is this going to solve for the Jets, firing their head coach after week 5? It's not even their bye week. You've got the Bills this week on Monday Night Football, I believe. You got the Steelers the week after. It's not getting any easier, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And Saleh is a defensive-minded coach, and their defense is playing pretty good ball right now. 5th in scoring, 1st in allowing the fewest yards per play, 6th best in the red zone, 8th best on stopping teams on 3rd down. And on top of that, they are allowing the 2nd least amount of yards per game. On the offense, though, different story here. The offense is 25th in points per game, 27th in yards per game. The O-line is 22nd in their pass blocking grade and 24th in their run blocking grade per PFF. It's not all bad. They are 10th best in the red zone, or 11th best in the red zone, and 10th best on 3rd downs, rather. But you're going to fire your defensive-minded head coach and then make the interim head coach your defensive coordinator in Jeff Ulbrich. I mean, okay, I guess. The Jets are 22nd in EPA per play on offense, but 5th in EPA on defense. So yeah, just fire the defensive-minded head coach and let's make the DC the interim head coach and let Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers keep doing whatever the heck they're doing over there. And believe it or not, this is actually the first time Jets co-owner Woody Johnson has ever fired a coach during the season. In his 25 years of owning the team, Woody released a statement today as well about the firing, saying that it was not an easy decision, but quote, "We are not where we should be given our expectations, and I believe now is the best time for us to move in a different direction." I mean, okay, Woody, don't get me wrong. I get why Saleh was fired. He finished his tenure with the Jets with just 20 wins and 36 losses in parts of 3 seasons and was 2-3 in 2024. But if you were comfortable with firing him as early as week 5, why the hell didn't you just fire him before the season even started? This move falls on their piss-poor owners as well as their piss-poor GM Joe Douglas. I mean, the guy is 29 and 59 since becoming their GM. Some also think Aaron Rodgers had say in the move as well, but Jordan Schultz reported, I don't know who is feeding him this information, but he did report that there was no fractured relationship between Rodgers and Saleh per multiple sources. For what that is worth, but I do think Aaron Rodgers, to some extent, probably had some say in there. I don't know why you're going to listen to a 40-year-old geriatric QB that doesn't have much time left, but they are in win-now mode is basically what I'm getting from all this. Now, they still need some help and improvement on the offensive side of the ball, and that's where Jordan Schultz reported the firing of Robert Saleh does not affect their interest in trying to make a trade for Davante Adams, so we'll see if that actually ends up happening. It would definitely be a boost to the offense, but you could have traded for Davante Adams, and I think the offense would have been better, regardless if Saleh or the interim head coach, the defensive coordinator, is running the show. Anyway, with all that being said, I'd love to know your thoughts on the firing of Saleh after week 5 with the Jets 2-3 and struggling on the offensive side of the ball. Does switching from one defensive-minded head coach to another suddenly give Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers superpowers, or was this overall a bad move, one of many over the years the Jets have made? Let me know either way in the comments down below. All right, from here, let's get back to some of the wild down to the wire games that happened over the weekend, with the next on the list being the Ravens and the Bengals. Most AFC North rivalry games are hard-nosed, low-scoring defensive slugfests, but this was not that. This was a freaking shootout. Both quarterbacks played outstanding in this one, with Lamar Jackson throwing for nearly 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, plus another 55 yards on the ground, while Joe Burrow was just shy of 400 yards passing while slinging 5 tutties. Jamar Chase had his 2024 breakout game, catching 10 passes for 193 yards and 2 touchdowns, including this quick pass he caught and bolted through Baltimore's secondary for 70 yards. That score put the Bengals up 10 with 9 minutes left, and the Ravens responded by taking their time and putting together an 11-play drive that was capped off by this insane touchdown to Isaiah Likely, where Lamar bobbled the snap, sprinted to his right, stiff-armed a defender, and threw it across his body at the last second for the touchdown. That was pretty electric. I definitely jumped off my couch for that one. Then Burrow, who was otherwise perfect in this game, made a crucial mistake here, throwing an INT to Marlon Humphrey, who was blanketing Jamar Chase on his route. Justin Big Nuts Tucker then drilled this 56-yard field goal to tie it up, and things headed into overtime after the Bengals went 3 and out. And overtime was just as crazy as regulation. The Ravens got the ball first and moved into Bengals territory, but Lamar again bobbled this snap, this time being recovered by the Bengals, who scooped it up and brought it within field goal range. I thought it was over here. However, the Bengals then only gained 3 yards on 3 straight runs, and then they brought out Evan McPherson for the 53-yard game-winning kick. But rookie punter Ryan Rico couldn't handle the snap cleanly, and McPherson shanked it, and the game went on. Derrick Henry then said enough of this and took this pitch for 51 yards down to the 6, where Justin Tucker hit the chip shot and sent the Ravens to 3-2. Meanwhile, the Bengals fell to 1-4 and 0-3 at home, which is crazy. It's not looking great for them at the moment as they desperately try and salvage their season and maybe squeak into the playoffs. You know who else is 1-4? The Jacksonville Jaguars, who finally got their first win of the season Sunday after beating the Colts In a nail-biter, let's jump ahead to the fourth quarter when Tank Bigsby took the pitch and said, "See ya!" knifing his way through the defense, stiff-arming a poor soul, and scoring a 65-yard touchdown to put the Jags up 34-20 with 5 minutes left in the game. Don't worry, though, because Joe Flacco has literal ice in his veins, and he lofted this one up for Alec Pierce, who made this unreal catch, batting the ball to himself with one hand, and somehow coming down with it. Then the very next play, Flacco connected with Pierce again for 46 yards to move them down to the 1-yard line, where Trey Sermon finished the job and brought them within 7. The Jags went 3 and out, punting the ball back to Indy. And guess who made another big play? Yup, Alec Pierce caught this beautiful ball on the run and took it all the way for the 65-yard score to tie the game with just 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go. The Jags stayed calm, though, and worked their way down the field with Trevor Lawrence connecting with Christian Kirk along the sideline, and that helped set up this 49-yard kick from Cam Little. That was absolute money. A big win, maybe, for the Jags, and Doug Peterson bought himself, I think, a little more time for now, and a tough loss for the Colts, who dropped to 2-3. I mean, credit once again to Joe Flacco, who stepped in for the injured Anthony Richardson. He might play next week, but he wasn't quite ready this week. But Flacco threw for 359 yards and 3 touchdowns, and I mean, you can't really ask for much more than that. Trevor Lawrence had his best game of the year, throwing for 371 yards and 2 touchdowns, one of which was an 85-yard strike to the rookie Brian Thomas Jr., who was already emerging as their number 1 wideout. Now, this next one wasn't technically a one-score game, but it was down to the wire and was much closer than the final score indicated. Danny Dimes led the G-men into Seattle without Malik Neighbors and had that offense humming, hooking up with Darius Slayton 8 times for 122 yards and a score, plus another one to Wan'Dale Robinson. Devin Singletary was also out for this game, and rookie Tyrone Tracy looked like the future of this backfield as he led the team in rushing yards with 129. It looked like Eric Gray was going to get most of the workload, but he fumbled on the goal line on their first drive, with Seattle returning it all the way for a touchdown, so he got put in the doghouse after that. New York's offense was as balanced as a team could be, throwing 34 times and rushing 34 times, while the Seahawks basically abandoned the run, rushing just 11 times, with 4 of those belonging to Geno Smith, who had 40 pass attempts with a little under 300 yards and a late touchdown to Jackson Smith and Jigba. That touchdown, by the way, put Seattle within 3 with just 2 minutes left in the game. The Giants went 3 and out, punting the ball back to the Seahawks, and Geno Smith took off down the right sideline for a huge 32-yard gain to put them in field goal range. And with 55 seconds left, Seattle lined up for the game-tying kick, but Isaiah Simmons jumped over the offensive line and blocked it, with Bryce Ford Wheaton getting the 60-yard scoop and score and sealing the win for the Giants 29-20. Just a punch to the nuts of a way to lose at home for the Seahawks, who have now lost 2 in a row after starting out 3-0. Another team that started out 3-0 and has suffered 2 tough losses in a row is the Buffalo Bills. This one was looking like a potential blowout as the Texans were rolling in the first half and were up 20-3 at one point in the third quarter, but a James Cook touchdown and a 49-yard touchdown to Keon Coleman helped bring the Bills within 3. Then later in the fourth quarter, with the Bills trying to take the lead, Josh Allen got pulled to the ground as he was getting rid of the ball and drilled his head onto the turf, and it really looked like to me he got knocked out cold. I mean, his body went completely limp, so he leaves the game and was being evaluated in the blue tent for a concussion. And I'm over here thinking to myself, yeah, this game is over because Josh Allen's day is obviously done, and Mitch Trubisky is not that guy. But nope, the Texans quickly turned the ball over, giving it right back to the Bills, and Mitch Trubisky came out for just one play to hand the ball off to James Cook. Then Josh Allen came rushing out of the blue tent, putting on his helmet, and trying to get back into the game. You can even see in this freeze frame here what appears to be a trainer or a Bills staff member holding up smelling salts to Josh Allen before he went back in. And he did go back in and finish the game. And on one hand, yes, I can respect Josh Allen's toughness and his desire to want to battle for his team. But if he really had a concussion, I mean, if he was really knocked out cold, which everyone agrees that it at least appears that is what happened, it is unacceptable that the medical staff allowed Josh Allen to go back into this game. That goes against everything that the league has preached in terms of player safety. And I would be surprised if there wasn't a thorough investigation into what took place on that sideline Sunday afternoon, and maybe even some consequences are to follow. Anyway, the Texans defense stood strong regardless and forced a field goal, which brought this game to 20 apiece. The Texans picked up a couple first downs but were forced to punt, and Tommy Townsend, former Chief legend, pinned the ball at the 3-yard line with 32 seconds left. Buffalo had no timeouts, and instead of just taking this game into overtime or at least making things much more difficult on the Texans and running the ball to force Houston to burn some of their 3 remaining timeouts, they decided to throw 3 times in a row, all falling incomplete. This forced the Bills to punt right back to the Texans, with Robert Woods quickly returning this one for 13 big yards to Buffalo's 46. C.J. Stroud fired a quick pass to Dare Agumbawale, and they called a quick timeout before trotting out Kaimi Fairbairn, who was money from 59 yards out, giving the Texans a massive win over the Bills. Some pretty mind-blowing decision-making from the Bills on that last possession. I mean, what was Sean McKnight even thinking? His decisions were so bad that he caused his team to make history in this loss. The Bills are now the only team in the last 45 years to be tied or leading in the final minute of the game inside their own 5-yard line and throw 3 straight passes. Insane. This game was crazy in all kinds of ways. In the first quarter, C.J. Stroud threw a freaking bomb that hit Nico Collins in stride for a 67-yard touchdown, but Nico injured his hamstring on the play and was out. I think it was on that play, but either way, he left shortly after and was out for the rest of the game. He's reportedly week to week with the injury and is expected, as of now, to miss week 6. Someone who should also consider sitting out next week is this ref, or at the very least, he might need to consider borrowing some of Josh Allen's smelling salts because I don't think he even knows what sport he's officiating.
Runner was out of bounds before he fumbled the basketball.
Basketball, homie, huh? And finally, this play pretty much sums up the Bills' offense for the day. Josh Allen honestly threw a perfect ball here straight into the back of Keon Coleman's head because he wasn't even looking for the ball, and it doinked him right in the back of the helmet. Josh Allen really struggled in this one, completing just 9 of 30 passes for 131 yards and 1 touchdown. 49 of those yards came on that Keon Coleman touchdown that was a quick hitch route, turned into a big play after a missed tackle. Now, I will say this, they were without Khalil Shakir, but still, it was a very rough day with him gone, and then Stephon Diggs, now a Texan. Diggs, by the way, was the leading receiver for the Texans with Nico Collins leaving early in the game. He caught 6 balls for 82 yards in his revenge game against Buffalo, and check out this hilarious photo from him and Josh Allen's post-game interaction. It's safe to say these two don't quite see eye to eye right now. Next up, the 49ers were up 23-10 on the Cardinals at halftime, appearing to be in complete control over their division rival. They even returned a blocked field goal for a touchdown late in the second quarter, which is always demoralizing for the other team. You think you're about to get 3, and in turn, you end up giving a touchdown to your opponent for a quick 10-point swing. Anyway, the Cardinals did fight back, picking Purdy off and turning it into a quick 3 points, then turning the Niners over on downs and capping off a 14-play drive with a 2-yard touchdown pass to Elijah Higgins on this little fake QB draw play that was executed to perfection. James Conner punched in the 2-point conversion, and this made it 23-21. Niners up by 2. And this game got complex for the Niners, by the way, whose kicker got injured. So you go up 23-21, and you don't even know if the 49ers are going to be able to kick a field goal. Didn't matter because their collapse continued on their next drive when Jordan Mason fumbled at the 10-yard line and Arizona recovered. They went on yet another 14-play drive and kicked the go-ahead field goal with a minute and a half remaining. Then on the second play of San Francisco's next drive, Brock Purdy was hit as he let the ball go, and Kaiser White came down with it, sealing the comeback upset win for Arizona. The Niners shockingly moved to 2-3 on the year, but the good news for them is that the division is still very much up for grabs, with Seattle currently in first, but they've dropped 2 in a row. A silver lining in this game is that Brandon Ayuk finally got going as well, catching 8 passes for 147 yards. The bad news, though, is again, their kicker is banged up. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out. I don't think it's going to be long-term, but he's banged up. Then CMC, he's out for who knows how long, and defensive end Yetur Gross-Matos recently underwent knee surgery and is expected to miss anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks as he recovers. The Packers and Rams also went neck and neck, with the big defensive stop being the deciding factor in this game. Let's fast forward to late in the second quarter when Jordan Love was being pressured in his own end zone and threw one of the weirdest pick sixes I've ever seen. Byron Young was barreling down on him, and instead of wrapping him up, he kind of body checked him, which caused him to lose his balance, and to avoid the safety, Love threw it as he was falling down, but it went right to Jalen McCullough, who caught it and waltzed in for the touchdown. And moving on to the second half, Love found tight end Tucker Kraft wide open to the left, and he stiff-armed this little boy to the turf and galloped ahead for the 66-yard score. Then Matthew Stafford was looking for a chunk play to Tutu Atwell here when Xavier McKinney made a play on the ball and came up with the pick. That is his 5th interception of the season, which leads the league by a mile and is the 6th consecutive game he's gotten a pick going back to last season. The last defensive back to win Defensive Player of the Year, by the way, was Stephon Gilmore back in 2019 with the Patriots, and he had 6 interceptions the entire year. Well, if McKinney keeps it going, he could very well find himself in the mix for that award. Anyway, the Packers capitalized on that turnover with Jordan Love once again hitting Tucker Kraft on this tight end screen to make it 24-13 Packers. The Rams offense finally came to life in the fourth quarter with Stafford connecting with 4 different receivers on this drive as Demarcus Robinson caught this short touchdown to bring them within 5 after Tutu Atwell was stopped short on the 2-point conversion. The Rams defense held strong on the next possession, getting their offense the ball back with 3 minutes to go, down by 5. They were able to pick up a couple big first downs, including this 4th and 1, but Matthew Stafford was sacked here on 2nd down, and that really killed the drive. He did connect with Colby Parkinson here and tried going right back to him on 4th down, but the pass was a little too out in front of him. It's due to pressure bearing down on Stafford, but the ball fell incomplete, and the Packers win it 24-19. Next up, Sunday Night Football was quite the doozy as there was lightning in the area, and the kickoff was delayed by about an hour and a half. That didn't bother TJ Watt, though, who got to Dak Prescott and knocked that ball loose here as the Steelers recovered. That was TJ Watt's 100th sack of his career, by the way, reaching that milestone in just his 109th game. That makes him the 2nd quickest player to reach that mark, only behind Reggie White, who did it in 96 games. Other than that, it was a pretty uneventful first half as the Cowboys held on to a 6-3 lead going into the break that really should have been more, but Dak threw this really ugly pick in the end zone as he was trying to target CeeDee Lamb before halftime. Justin Fields threw a dart to Connor Hayward to put Pittsburgh up on top 10-6. Then Brandon Aubrey's field goal was blocked on the Cowboys' next drive. No worries though, because Rico Dowdle made this rolling catch in the end zone to put them ahead 13-10. They had a chance to add to their lead after Pittsburgh went 3 and out, but Joey Porter Jr. snagged this INT and Justin Fields shoveled this pass to Pat Freiermuth for the touchdown. Dak decided he was done being ass though, and he led the Cowboys all the way down the field while draining the clock, putting them in prime position to score the game-winning touchdown with little time remaining. Rico Dowdle gave Cowboys fans a good scare as he tried to shoot in the end zone here, but got the ball popped out. Thankfully for the Cowboys though, Dak jumped on it, unlike Cam Newton in the Super Bowl. So on 4th and goal with 20 seconds left, Dak dropped back and hit Jalen Tolbert on this crossing route to give Dallas the lead and ultimately the game as they moved to 3-2 on the year. And for whatever reason, they're now 3-0 on the road, yet are 0-2 at home, which is interesting to say the least. The Steelers, meanwhile, dropped to 3-2 after starting the season 3-0, and they fall below Baltimore in the AFC North. And I hope the Steelers enjoyed leading their division while they did, because it's going to be very hard for them to climb back up, at least from the looks of it right now. And then while Monday Night Football between the Chiefs and the Saints was really not a close game, it's worth mentioning because after KC handled New Orleans in primetime, they joined the Vikings as the only 5-0 teams in the league as they both head into their bye weeks. As far as last night's game, though, Derek Carr was playing 500, dead or alive on their first possession, and Brian Cook came down with this insane leaping INT. Kareem Hunt punched in his first touchdown in his 2nd stint with the squad, then 3 Harrison Butker field goals and a direct snap to Kelsey, which he proceeded to hand off to Xavier Worthy for the score, gave the Chiefs all 26 of their points. As for the Saints, Derek Carr hit Rashid Shaheed on a 43-yard strike in the first quarter. Then late in the third quarter, the Chiefs were on the goal line, but Juju Smith-Schuster couldn't haul in this pass. Sure, the pass could have been a little bit better, but he also could have hauled it in, hit him in the mitts. And the former Chief, Colin Saunders, made this pretty impressive one-handed pick and rumbled his way to the 35-yard line, which helped set up the Saints' only other touchdown to Foster Moreau. However, this game really wasn't even close. The final score was 26-13, but it easily could have been something like 40-7 if the Chiefs were a little bit better in the red zone. They had 7 red zone trips and only ended up with 2 touchdowns. And to further prove my point, the Chiefs won the time of possession by nearly 20 minutes and outgained the Saints by 240 yards. KC only got home to Derek Carr once in this game, but he was under pressure all night and never looked comfortable in the pocket, throwing for just 165 yards on 28 attempts. And it's worth mentioning that he did leave the game in the fourth quarter with an oblique injury. He never returned, Hopefully this is not a serious injury. It sounds like it's going to be him playing next week, being the starting quarterback next week, saying, quote, "I'm going to do anything I can to be out there, so we shall see." And that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up another insane week in the NFL. I mean, this week was absolutely crazy with all these down-to-the-wire finishes and one-score games. The Jets firing their head coach. The Jags finally got a win, even though I thought maybe Dougie Fresh was going to be the coach to go before Saleh. I was wrong, and I admit it. So yeah, you guys got to let me know your thoughts on everything that happened this week in the comments down below. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.